best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, the best place for below average Star Wars. I am the Geordie Jedi Pete.
I'm the Canon Junkie XL Ian.
And I'm Kat Rizielka.
And we are back to review even more Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 3. Today we will be reviewing Episode 8 and Episode 9. So again, if you have not watched Episode 8 or Episode 9 of The Bad Batch Season 3, pause this podcast right now. Go watch those on Disney Plus where they're ready and available for you. Then jump back on and listen to us and join in with us getting really, really sweaty about The Bad Batch. So to start off, we're going to be doing episode 8, which was Bad Territory, which came out on March 20th, 2024. And essentially, Fee has been asked by the Bad Batch to make inquiries about the Empire's M-Count project. They're obviously concerned because they've learned that the reason why Omega is a target of the Empire is because something to do with M-Count. And Fee reports that bounty hunters have been hired to search for subjects featuring that special trait. Believing that Fennec Shand may have know the answer, Hunter and Wrecker decide to seek her out, leaving Omega and Crosshair on Pabu. While Shand knows nothing herself, she refers them to another bounty hunter who might, in exchange them helping her capture her current target, Sylar Saris, who's essentially a giant insect type creature. After a really thrilling and sort of adventurous hunt across sort of Florida swamp terrain, they bring Saris down, and Shand secretly informs another party about the batch. On Papu, Crosshair refuses to talk about the trauma he's endured on Tantis, which impairs his sniping skills, in particular his trigger hand. Omega helps him overcome his handicap by teaching him meditative techniques. Let's just dive and go straight to you, Kat. Sort of, this episode was sort of, we split the gang up again. We allow Omega and Crosshair to sort of have some rest time, some respite, you could say. They're left on Pabu, even though they don't want to be left, but they're left on Pabu. While Hunter and Wrecker go in search of information, which is going to help them drive not just their adventure forward, but also the series storyline forward. So just what were you expecting going into the episode, and what were some of your favourite parts?
Well, I was expecting to see Fennec being an amazing bounty hunter, which we do get to see a lot in this episode. And I think it was a wonderfully refreshing change of pace, because a lot of the current episodes from this season have been very emotionally laden, very heavy subject matter. And I think this goes back to more the roots of the Bad Batch and that sense of action and adventure, where we are doing this with a purpose. And the task they take on for Fennec is obviously in exchange for the information that she holds or can get about M-Counts. But I loved it, and getting to see this Star Wars version of the Florida Keys was so unique. And we have space alligators now.
We certainly do, yes. Space alligators, indeed. Let's hope they make some nice plushies of those and get those in Disney Store, because we'll be buying them. I know exactly what you're saying about sort of the change in technique, and I think, I think a lot of this season, as you said, has been quite emotive and very deep. And this episode was very much sort of them, back to a swashbuckling adventure, certainly for Hunter and Wrecker. One of the things I did really like, though, was, you see Hunter, although he tells, the reason why he wants Crosshair and Omega to stay behind is because obviously they don't want to put at arm's reach when they're investigating sort of the M-Count investigation. But also, he on the slide does tell Omega to sort of, try and help Crosshair with his issues, which I thought was quite sweet. That he's noticed that as well. His brother but also like, he knows Omega's worth, and he knows that Crosshair will probably listen to Omega rather than him. Well, that's something that's very sensitive. So that was really good. I don't know what your thoughts were on sort of the more emotional side of this episode, Ian, where the moments between Omega and Crosshair.
Yeah, that was a really nice touch for the episode to counteract what Kat said with the more like the Hunter and Wrecker stuff felt a bit more like an episode of maybe The Mandalorian in its setting, like do a favor for someone for some information or something like that. So, excuse me, the stuff with Crosshair and Omega was the emotional anchor of the story. And it's quite an interesting idea that Crosshair's hand tremors potentially might not be physical. It might be something that has emotionally happened to him whilst he was obviously held captive in Mount Tantis, which I don't think we really got the full answer of what they were actually doing to Crosshair and the rest of the clones there and what they're trying to make them do. So yeah, that was a really cool moment between those two characters. I do like the relationship that's developing between Omega and Crosshair, and she really does look up to him and wants him to be part of the team and that. And yeah, no, it was a really cool emotional beat to the story that obviously went along with them in Space Florida.
Indeed. I think for me, the use of hands in Star Wars and storytelling, the hands are used quite a lot to sort of tell the story of Star Wars. I think if you go back to, the original trilogy, Vader takes Luke's hand, and then that leads to that moment when Luke takes Vader's hand and Luke realizes that he's probably going down the same path Vader did. And that's when Luke pulls back. If you look to the Mortis gods in Rebels, how they unlock the way to get into the World Between Worlds, is through the hands in the Mortis mosaic or the Mortis art. Something you want to talk about, Kat, probably, I think if you look at hands in the sequel trilogy, I think, Kylo Ren holding the hand out, Rey not taking it, the rain from where Rey is sort of being on Kylo's hand when she refuses, and then we get the moment where they do touch hands and Luke sees it at the wrong time, and what that leads to. So it's great to see hands here. I see the hand sort of shivering the Crosshair as sort of it's a moment where, it's sort of maybe his future hasn't decided about what he's going to end up doing. And I don't mean that as in he's going to turn on the Bad Batch. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think whether or not he can come back and be a full soldier, or whether he sort of just diminishes in his own grief and sort of never recovers mentally, if that makes sense. I don't know what you thought about the hand, Kat, and if you got any thoughts.
Absolutely. I completely agree that hands are a really important symbol throughout Star Wars, and Crosshair's shaking hands to me come across as a visible symptom of his PTSD and what he's undergone at the hands of the Empire. Like you were saying, we don't actually know what was done to Crosshair and the clones who were trying to be brainwashed into these super soldiers, these shadow operatives that the Empire is using. But whatever it is, it's something that Crosshair currently feels he can't speak about. And I think that shaking of his hand is him repressing those memories, repressing those thoughts. And even if he never got the full use of his hand back, I think it could be a chance to show that even with that sort of emotional impact, he is still a very valued member of the Bad Batch. He can still shoot. He's just not the same sniper he was before. But the hand may also then represent him sort of fully mentally healing or mentally overcoming that trauma, and in which case he may go back to being the sniper he was. It's very interesting, and I think it would work either way for his character, because Crosshair's always been so complicated that I think him sort of retiring from being a sniper will be just as empowering as him becoming a sniper by actually addressing his emotions.
Definitely. I think we're very much sort of on his journey now within the series about where he goes next and sort of and how he copes with that. I did also like, it was a very vulnerable moment when sort of when Omega tells him about, maybe it's in your head, maybe it's not a physical injury, and sort of, and he says, how can you help us type of thing, you know what I mean? And he doesn't say it in a way that's like upsetting her. It's in a way where it's like he wants to know, and then she shares it with him. I don't know what your thoughts were, Ian, on that vulnerable moment and just where it's gone from, these two who, didn't necessarily always get on. I think she's always had a great relationship with Hunter, obviously, and, a fun relationship with Wrecker, a learner relationship with Tech. But, her and Crosshair, didn't have too much of a relationship in the past. But now we see what they've been through, and they're very much together here for each other.
I think that she feels a certain, I'm trying to think of the word, a certain, maybe not debt, but if we go back all the way to the first episode of The Bad Batch, she even says to him when they're sat in the prison cell on Camino, like, I know you can't help it. I know you can't help what you're about to do and that. So I think she feels like she's always been trying to get Crosshair back in the fold, and she even tries the end of season 1 and that. So it's been a well established relationship that she has never truly given up on Crosshair, even when he was trying to kill them and trying to hunt them down for the Empire. So yeah, I think their relationship makes total sense. I really think she is, like Kat says, trying to get him to move past his emotional, like stunted growth and be a true member of the team and that. And I think it is working. You can tell he truly cares about her. Like he says in the episode coming up that we're not handing her over. So he's at the point now where he would, I think, lay down his life for Omega. So yeah, I think it's a really cool development of their relationship, that we truly see that they are really good friends now, and that she truly sees him as her brother.
Definitely. I think moving on from that, let's talk about more of the fun stuff. Sort of Silasaurus is sort of a mantis type creature. He's very hard hand-to-hand combat, hard to battle against, as Hunter and Wrecker found out. Kat, what was your thoughts on Silasaurus and the chase to find him?
I really liked him as a villain. I suppose he is kind of the villain of this episode. It gave me Kung Fu Panda vibes in the fact that he is this giant praying mantis like alien who is very good at fighting. Praying mantises are apex predators in forest environments, so it makes sense that he would be a very good fighter. And the way he camouflages himself and uses his arms, I loved how the animators sort of combined an actual praying mantis into his behavior. And he was a really formidable foe. We know that Hunter and Wrecker are very skilled fighters, particularly Hunter. And yet, even between the two of them, they can't take him down without Fennec's help. And just the animation of the entire sequence, I thought, was incredible. It was very dark and gritty as well. The lighting they made very moody to portray that toxic atmosphere. And he's hidden himself away that is somewhere very isolated. So that just added to the intense atmosphere of the fight, because you had the blaster bolts sort of illuminating the dark. It felt live action in quite a few places for me.
Yeah, I thought definitely the hand-to-hand combat scenes were very much, and we get more of that in the next episode as well. It felt very, very real, is what I would say. The movement, fast, intense, real, human, like visceral, 100%. Ian, obviously, as a man who loves Star Wars canon, obviously we've now got a new species, I believe, in Silasaurus, and a new, obviously I think he's connected to the Hutts, I believe, is why they're after him. So, also, what are your thoughts on getting sort of a new character and a new look to sort of excite you?
Yeah, I was looking at the episode guide in preparation for this episode, and there is a praying mantis-like character seen in the cantina in A New Hope. So maybe that's the species there. That's what it's based off. It's behind Obi-Wan in the cantina of A New Hope. See, that was really cool to see something like that pulled out of the first Star Wars movie, which I think is really cool. Also, there was a cool tie into the Jedi Fallen Order series where they called Skylar Saris the Slayer of Ordo Eris, which is the asteroid base we visit in Jedi Fallen Order uh, for the Haxian Brood. So that was a nice little tie into the Jedi Fallen Order series as well. I do love when shows connect over parts of Star Wars media. It makes stuff for like us Star Wars nerds really cool. Like it's a throwaway line for most people, but for like people who like really obsess over these details, I think it's a really cool little detail they threw in there.
You've just reminded me of that level. That level was absolutely awful. Oh my gosh. It took me so many goes.
Was this the first game when you get captured by the Haxian Brood?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the base they're talking about. So yeah, he's took out a couple of bosses of the criminal organization known as the Haxian Brood. The Brood, as well as his asteroid-based stronghold Ordo Eris, was created for the video game Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. That's a cool little tie-in.
Very cool tie-in. Yeah, I think for me this episode it was fun. It was back to some swashbuckling adventure, also dealing with Crosshair and Omega having some emotional time together. I also love the fact we learned sort of at the end that Fennec says she never failed getting Omega. The people who hired her eventually said leave Omega with the Bad Batch. It's probably for the best. And obviously, I believe it was Namaste who actually hired her in the first place. So we know that Namaste at one point come to the conclusion that Omega was better off with the Bad Batch. So you can only imagine Namaste sort of adds more to the tragedy of when Omega rocks up at Tantus and Namaste is sort of there. I don't know what people's thoughts were on that. We'll go to you first, Kat, sort of about that truth that comes out.
Absolutely. It's really interesting because although Fennec Shand is a bounty hunter, she has a very strong moral code. And the way that she's left Omega alone also possibly suggests that she has taken out or redirected other bounty hunters away from Omega, which makes me wonder if Fennec is sort of working adjacently for the hidden path to protect people with higher M counts and possibly Force users. So it adds like another layer to her character that we don't necessarily see in the Book of Boba Fett, but it seems to be coming through in these episodes where one, she lets Omega go in the earlier seasons, and now she contacts someone very special in order to help protect Omega.
Yeah, I find that really interesting because it's like when the way she communicates with people is like very sort of standoffish, and she's very stern with her words, very powerful, I would say. If you just look at the beginning of the episode when she's dealing with the Rodian, and when Hunter and Wrecker interrupt her, it's quite a tense sequence where you don't know whether she's gonna. I mean, she probably is always going to help them because she's that type of person deep down, but that facade she gives, which is probably why she survived so long in the Star Wars galaxy, is that that sort of intenseness that she brings, does make you doubt a little bit. I don't know what your thoughts were, Ian, on just Fennec and how she deals with the Bad Batch, and also like how she was talking about Rodian at the beginning.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think she's has to put up that facade. I'm sure being a bounty hunter, you can't show any weakness or mercy to people because then otherwise people won't take you seriously. It's a hard job to do. I think it's really interesting to see her in this part of her life. Obviously, we see her a lot later in the timeline when we meet her in The Mandalorian, and then it's interesting to see how she used to be. She's very much all about the money, even though, like you said, I do suspect that she has a good heart deep down. However, at this point in her life, I think she's very much about the money, about the credits, and that she has to put on this facade to obviously help in her bounty hunting career. So yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. I like seeing characters at different points in the timeline to see what motivates them at this point. Like I said, when we see her in the Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, she's very much wanting to carve out her own life with Boba Fett and not answer to anyone. And at this point in her life, I think she'd just be happy to take any credit she can get and build her reputation.
Definitely. I think for me, this episode was like a perfect Bad Batch episode. We got great action adventure. We got some really nice emotive bits between Crosshair and Omega. But you got a Star Wars character that we love in Fennec Shand popping her head in and doing some really good work. And we got a brand new creature in Silosaurus causing some damage on the hunt. Just got you first, Kat. What was your final thoughts on the episode Bad Territory? And if there's anything we haven't discussed, just feel free to shoot off.
Absolutely loved it. I thought it was a really great change of pace, and Omega's moments with Crosshair and Pabu were really touching. And my favourite moment was when Omega says to Crosshair, "You don't like anything."
Indeed. She knows him down to a T. Ian, any closing thoughts on Bad Territory?
No, just a fun episode. I liked the space station type location that they introduced at the beginning of the episode. I thought it was a nice little different thing from like the planets we've been visiting. But no, on top of that, really fun episode. I really enjoyed it, and ready to move on to what we have to talk about next.
Indeed. So that brings on to episode 9, The Harbinger, which was released on March 27th, 2024. Again, going to be very spoiler heavy here. So if you have not watched the episode, definitely pause, go watch it, and then come back. So yeah, the Bad Batch obviously back together on Pabu while waiting. On Pabu, sort of the Bad Batch encounters Fennec Shan's contact, Asajj Ventress, who informs them that the M count signifies a person's innate connection to the Force. Omega has Ventress test her using the Jedi ways, but once they discover Ventress's identity, the Batch sort of distrust her. And then we'll get a little bit of hostility between the Bad Batch and Ventress. Convinced that Ventress is sincere, Omega continues the tests under her, but during the final trial at sea, they inadvertently summon and are attacked by a sea monster. Ventress rescues Omega and pacifies the creature, thereby gaining ground with the rest of the batch. Before leaving, Ventress claims that Omega's M count is low, but after indirectly admitting that the adult clones that she was lying, she warns them that they will not be safe in Pabu while the Empire keeps hunting Omega. So there's a lot to unpack from this episode. Although we didn't really journey anywhere, sort of all the details in the moments. We'll just go to you first, Kat, I suppose. Like, what were your thoughts on, we get there straight away, the Asajj is here on the planet. What were your first thoughts on Asajj's debut and just sort of and how she interacted with people at first?
I suspected from the end of the previous episode that the person Fennec was contacting was Asajj Ventress, because she's one of the few people who would actually know what an M count is, being such a strong Force user herself. And her return was just incredible. Everything about her right now, she's gone through being a separatist, being a Jedi, being a bounty hunter, and she has just reached that stage in her life, I think, where she is grumpy but trying to do the right thing. And her characterization was so perfect in this episode. I loved every minute with Ventress, and I just want basically an entire season of Ventress out in the galaxy with Quinlan Voss.
And have you got any theories on how Ventress is alive and well to be in this episode?
Yes, I do. I've been taking a good deep look at Dark Disciple and trying to figure out exactly the timeline of events that happened, because if you have read that book by Christy Golden, which I highly recommend, it is absolutely fantastic. It was previously going to be a Clone Wars arc. It never got into production, but the book is just as good as any episodes of the show, and it deals with an assassination plot by the Jedi to take down Count Dooku. Very interesting. But in that book, Ventress forms a relationship with Quinlan Vos and sacrifices herself to save him. She is killed by Dooku's Force lightning, or so it appears. But Quinlan Vos takes her back to Dathomir to bury her, but he doesn't bury her precisely. He puts her into a pool, and this is the same pool that he killed a creature in called the Sleeper. Now, in Night Sister mythology, the Sleeper is a creature that's a necessary ingredient for something called the Water of Life, which is a potion that can revive the dead and heal wounds. So basically, I think through Quinlan killing the Sleeper, which no Night Sister had done before, they'd only harvested parts of its body, I think that Quinlan accidentally made the entire pool Water of Life. He made the whole thing a potion. So when he actually buried Ventress in the pool, he actually saved her life and revived her. Because if you look at Ventress's animation, you can see that she still bears the scars of Dooku's lightning, but she is very much alive.
Do you think Quinlan did that by accident or on purpose?
I think he did it absolutely by accident because, no offense to Quinlan, I absolutely love him. He is very empathic, but he is not the brightest of the Jedi. He is very emotionally intelligent, but I don't think he would have realized the Night Sister magic that he was actually helping to perform.
Ian, any thoughts that you want to share on how Ventress is here, alive and well, in the Bad Batch?
Oh, I haven't gone into the detail of Kat has, to be fair. I don't know. I don't know how she's alive, to be fair. I'm glad she is. I think the character's amazing, and I'm glad they brought her back. And I am glad to see that we will get that story told in future content. The showrunners have confirmed that there will be an explanation to how she's alive in future content, whether that, I don't know what that'll be, maybe it's Tales of the Jedi or something. But I have no idea how she's alive, no. Spooky Night Sister magic stuff, I'm guessing, to be fair.
Indeed, and for me, I think, it's probably a perfect tale to tell in Tales of the Jedi, because you can sort of tell the story of her and her master, you can tell the story of her and Dooku, and you can tell the story of her afterwards, and her death and then reincarnation. So that's a really meaty sort of season there based on her, which will be really cool. And I think that makes perfect sense, Kath, sort of what you've said about sort of how that could happen. So real good work in researching that. What do you mean? Obviously, we do see, Asajj sends Omega away on like a silly errand, although Omega takes it quite seriously to sort of reach the top of the mountain, and then so she can converse with the Bad Batch, which starts in a fight. Obviously, Asajj is very much reserved and doesn't want to hurt them, and the Batch are obviously quite angry. And again, we get to see some fantastic animation here, where sort of the backwards, sort of certainly the hand-to-hand combat scenes seem very real and almost don't seem like animation. They seem very real. Again, I think take the hats off to the animators here. This really is top notch, the best animation on the world right now. Just talk us through your thoughts on the Bad Batch and Ventress.
Yeah, it was interesting to obviously they had the suspicions of who she was, and then they obviously checked Tech's files and found out, yes, it is Asajj Ventress. There's obviously the Separatist assassin, so that obviously made them mistrust her from the beginning. I do like how she sent Omega away. I don't know if that was a test or not. I'm not sure whether that was just to get her to go away so she could hash things out with the Batch. Obviously, you can tell she was fighting them with kid gloves on, because if she really wanted to fight them, she could take the Bad Batch down pretty easily. She obviously was trained by Count Dooku and the Jedi, and Kai Nerek, the Jedi master. So yeah, I really enjoyed, and like you said, the animation, just not just in this point, but this episode is probably the best animation, not just in Star Wars, but animation I've ever seen in anything really. Like, there's a shot later on in the episode where I was like, this looks like live action. It's crazy how the animation level keeps making step up after step up. I remember seeing the Clone Wars Season 7 animation. I was like, this is absolutely stunning. And this has gone up several levels from that. So yeah, the fight was amazing. It gave me Ahsoka versus Maul vibes of how it was staged. Maybe I don't know whether they did do like some motion capture for it, but it was next level, unbelievable to look at. And yeah, I can't believe that they've got to this level of animation. When you see her first appearance in the Clone Wars movie all those years ago, to get to this, it is mind blowing how they've got to that level.
It is indeed. Kat, what were your thoughts on the Bad Batch versus Asajj?
Absolutely love this scene. Seeing Hunter, Wrecker, and Crosshair actually all agreeing for once was just so perfect. They are so protective of Omega, and no matter what history is behind them, the one thing they can all agree on is that Omega has to be protected. Even though she's older, they do see her as a little sister, and they are so willing to take on a Force user to protect her. It's unbelievable the level of love and care they show for her. But Asajj does wipe the floor with them. No matter how well trained they are, she is still a very powerful Force user. And the way she fights is just incredible. I agree with Ian. I do wonder if some of it was motion capture because there was such authenticity to her moves, the pressure points she was trying to hit, and the way she was tackling them was all so precise to martial arts. I thought it was really interesting that it was only at the very end that she got out her lightsaber, proving that at no point did she truly want to hurt any of them. She was just trying to make a point. It felt very much like from Rebels when Rex has to take on the remaining the remaining Separatist droids, and Ezra basically points out that nobody won the war. It gave me that kind of feeling from this as well, that yes, they were once separatists and clones, but now they are on the same side because ultimately the Empire won.
Definitely, that was one of my thoughts in when I watched it as well. Was when they start sort of being like, "Oh, she was like Dooku's assassin or whatever." I was like, "Well, hang on a sec, guys. Like, you have been on both sides of the war now, and you know it was a force. So like, yes, have your guard up, but don't treat it like that." Was my thoughts because you have been there and seen it. What do you make of Asajj only having one lightsaber?
I thought that was quite interesting how she's gone from the two to just using one. Also, it's a yellow blade now, which is really cool. And I do wonder why she's changed because her fighting style has always been about two lightsabers. It could be a representation that she's no longer as aggressive in her fighting, that she's much more contemplative and isn't using fighting as her first choice anymore. So she just has the one lightsaber more for defense than offense. But it could also be that because she's a Force user, hiding one lightsaber is a lot easier. So maybe it's also to help her lay low from the Empire.
Indeed. Ian, I don't know what your thoughts were on the title. Obviously, the Harbinger. Obviously, the Harbinger of death, of doom, and that obviously is Asajj Ventress the Harbinger of this story. And then obviously, like, if that is the case, sort of what is the message she's bringing to the Bad Batch?
I think Pabu is on borrowed time, to be fair. I think that's what she said. She said to him, "You need to leave this place. You're not as safe as you think you are." And I think that spells doom for Pabu, and they're going to have to leave Pabu, and the Empire is going to come to Pabu to look for them. We've already seen in the trailer that clone assassin is on Pabu. So yeah, I think she is there to obviously say, you need to leave this place, and if you don't leave this place, then the Empire will find you, and that is what's going to happen if they obviously don't leave Pabu, which I'm guessing they won't.
I don't know if you noticed this, Kat. I think sort of when we come to Pabu in past episodes, it's usually quite like sun shining and glistening and the fishing boats are out. But this is very much, it seemed to be like darker. Like it seemed to be like mood lighting, like sort of we saw Pabu in a different light, which again I thought is this foreshadowing what's going to happen?
Absolutely, I had the exact same thought because as soon as the episode opens, we see a very grey, very stormy Pabu when we're used to it appearing as a paradise with blue skies and clear seas. And although the Harbinger could refer partly to Asajj, I think it may also be a reference to a storm is coming, the winds are changing, and that Pabu is no longer as safe as it once was for Omega and the Bad Batch. So the way that's foreshadowed in the weather is very clever, but that greyness, those grey, dull tones, do suggest how this is becoming a paradise lost and that the Empire are probably on their way.
Indeed. I don't know what your thoughts were, Ian, on the face off between Ventress Omega and the sea monster, and what your thoughts were on the sea monster.
Yeah, that was a really. They've used this tool a lot in Star Wars, obviously, where we see. It was in Star Wars Rebels where they used the Force and they always end up summoning a monster and all that type of thing. But it was a nice change of pace for the monster to not be bad. To be fair, it was summoned and then Ventress used her Force abilities to calm the monster down as well. That was the scene I was talking about with the animation. That looked unbelievable, like outstanding. So yeah, it was cool. I also liked where Omega said to Ventress, "Oh well, you don't know anything about this either." Obviously, because she was being a bit of a spoilt child because she couldn't do what Ventress wanted her to do. So Ventress obviously uses the Force. I do like the green fish. That it looked very Night Sistery as well. That was a really cool moment. It looked like something straight out of Dathomir that had come out the sea. So yeah, no, it was really cool, and it was cool for the Bad Batch to trust Ventress in the end as well, because obviously Omega says, "Oh, you need to let Ventress handle it," and they said, "Oh, that's not happening." He says, "You need to trust her," and they end up doing it, and she ends up obviously getting them out of the predicament they're in. So yeah, I thought that was a beautifully shot scene and a really really good part of the episode.
I thought it was a great moment when they're using the binoculars to watch her, and then sort of
Yeah,
Ventress looks directly at them, and like they have a little panic attack. I thought it was really funny.
that's very Night Sistery. Yeah, it's quite funny. Yeah, that made me laugh.
I thought the sea monster was so awesome. It reminded me a little bit like, similar designs we've seen sort of in the crate dragons of the past, and like in space worms in space. It's tied into very much Star Wars esque. I don't know if we've got the name of what the creature is, but I just thought it was very Star Wars, but also very very mystical, which was really cool. And I loved how Ventress like almost when she's like, I didn't realize I'd summoned it. So again, just showing you that the Force is very much have to be careful with it. Do you know what I mean?
It does have a name, by the way.
What's it called?
It's called a Rathian.
Ooh, and have we seen these before?
No, I think it's definitely a new species. Before I knew the name, I was just calling it the Star Wars Kraken.
He certainly was cracking. He certainly was. So I wonder if we'll see more of this type of creature. Its tentacles sort of reminded me a bit of sort of the like the tentacles that came out of the Sarlacc pit as well. Again, Star Wars, sort of all links together. Maybe these are different evolutions of the same creature, maybe from a long, long time ago, perhaps. I don't know what you thought about the creature design, Ian, and how it sort of matches other things in Star Wars.
Yeah, it was really cool. It took me back to the Phantom Menace days where they're obviously in the sea, in the ocean on Naboo, and there's always big fish monsters and that type of thing. So yeah, it was a really cool callback to see, and also it was also a really cool callback to see. It's not just a mindless beast. Obviously, Ventress connected with it, and it was a really cool moment to see that not every beast in Star Wars is bad. To be fair.
And then another thing I loved was that once Ventress managed to get close to it, she was able to calm it straight away. So again, we've seen Ventress be very calm when she fought the Bad Batch. And then we've seen her be very calm here. And again, I think it shows quite a significant character development from the Asajj Ventress we've seen in the Clone Wars, and also the Asajj Ventress we've seen in the early parts of the Dark Disciple book. I don't know what your thoughts were on that, Kat.
Her character growth is so striking because in Dark Disciple, I mentioned the Sleeper, which is a monster on Dathomir that the Night Sisters reveal. And in order to have Quinlan Vos tap into more dark side powers, Ventress actually urges him to summon it and kill it. So basically the complete reversal of what happens in this episode, where she summons the Vrathian but then subdues it and connects to it through the Force. So I think it shows how far she's come from being a dark side, almost Sith, to now embracing a much more harmonious connection to the Force, which I think is just a beautiful redemption arc for her.
Ian, I'm going to go to you. So if Asajj is now alive in the current timeline, so not died in Dark Disciple, how far do we see her go into sort of the original trilogy timeline, do you think?
Oh, now that is interesting. I do think that she would be out of the bounty hunting business by the time of the original trilogy, because then I don't think the Empire would look very kindly on her, obviously being an acolyte of Dooku and a Force sensitive. So I do think we could potentially see stories of maybe Inquisitors trying to go after Ventress, which would be hilarious because Ventress would obviously wipe the floor with the Inquisitors, to be fair. Yeah, no, that's interesting. It'd be interesting to see how her story does come full circle. I remember in Star Wars Legends, in the comic Star Wars Obsession, she just left the known galaxy, which I don't think she would do in canon. I think that was just obviously to take her out of the story in the Legends timeline. So I don't know. It could go either way. She could become a bounty hunter, but then it does beg the question, maybe she should have been on the bridge on the Star Destroyer hunting down Luke and Han and Leia in the original trilogy. But I don't think she'd do that anyway. I think she would err on the side of the good guys. I do think there is potential for her and Quinlan to show up and help the Hidden Path. We obviously know Quinlan does help the Hidden Path. That's been confirmed in Kenobi. And I think that would be a really good idea for an animated show, would be a Hidden Path show where you could have Asajj Ventress, you could have Quinlan Vos, you could have there's plenty of Jedi mentioned on that in that safe house who have carved their name into that safe house. I only just found out the other day that Ram Kota from Force Unleashed, his name is on that safe house, which is hugely exciting for me. So yeah, I just think there's so many things you can do, and like I said, I am happy that we are. It's basically confirmed we are going to get a future Ventress story. Whether that'll lead to anything too close to the original trilogy, I'm not sure.
Because my thoughts are, Kat, is that, the longer she exists, the closer we might see maybe Asajj meeting up with Night Sister Merrin from the Jedi Fallen Order games.
That would be really interesting. I think, though, that in a way, part of Ventress did die on Dathomir, and interestingly, she doesn't try to connect to any of her Night Sister powers or beliefs when she's talking to Omega. So I wonder if, because everyone thinks Ventress is dead, a lot of people probably think that Quinlan is dead. So I'm just hoping that the two of them run off and live happily ever after, somewhere nice and quiet in the galaxy where they aren't bothered.
Well, I've got a question for you. You have to answer it. Okay. So we can either have Quinlan and Asajj together again, love and life, romance, adventure, awesomeness, or we have the resurrection of Ben Solo and the Reylo get together that I know your heart desires. We only have one though. Which one are you picking? The other one dies in flames.
You can't make me pick. I refuse to pick. We need both because Quinlan and Ventress went through so much in that book. I was crying over Dark Disciple and that ending. Do not squander my hope right now.
You have to pick one. You have to pick which one you want.
Absolutely not. I would sooner take a lightsaber to the gut.
Oh, we'll let Ian decide for you. Ian, which one was saving?
Ian, you've got my full permission to lightsaber me. I refuse to make this choice.
I think Ian's gone. He's not there. Technical.
Oh, he's taking the high ground, moral high ground.
He doesn't want to risk your wrath. I don't think of destroying destroy
sorry about that. I was sorry, I left myself on mute for 2 seconds. Sorry about that. No, I said I would. I'd probably go Ben Solo, to be fair, just because I really enjoyed Adam Driver's performance in the sequel trilogy. I think he's the best part of the sequel trilogy. So yeah, it would be cool to see him back and see him post episode 9. So yeah, I would go Ben Solo.
He's killed Asajj and he's killed Quinlan for you.
No problem, Kat.
Unbelievable. We can have both.
No, we can't. I'm just joking. I just want to see I just want to see who would go to the dark side, and Ian did not disappoint. Did choose one or the other.
I always go to the dark side. No problem.
You see, this is why you enjoy playing Knights of the Old Republic so much.
Yep, I have no problem. To be fair, in games, I can't be evil. I don't know why. So that's not quite possibly true. But even in like Red Dead and Fallout, I can't do the evil stuff. I feel bad. So maybe I'm good at heart. I just play the bad guy.
Oh no, in video games, I will totally go dark side if I need to. I'm actually hoping that Jedi Fallen Order, or whatever they call it, 3, Cal Kestis is going to turn to the dark side.
Oh. Did you see that? Did you see that cool Cal Kestis Inquisitor figure they're releasing? Because I bet you did.
I did. Cal looks very hot in the Inquisitor's uniform. That's all I'm saying.
Sheesh. I believe one thing I noticed about that pack is that obviously he's new in the pack, but does he come with repacks alongside him?
I know, that's Hasbro being evil.
To be fair though, I cannot criticize them too much because they've just released that. They're going to release that Last Command 4-pack with a Jorah Sabayoth, and I have pre-ordered that because that is next level.
Hopefully, but that Luke though it's like a Luke head on top of Obi-Wan Kenobi body, isn't it?
Yeah. I just want the Jorah Sabayoth. The Jorah Sabayoth is what I need. I do need that figure. So yeah, no, I have pre-ordered that. I don't mind. Like just for the box is class as well. So I'll let it slide that they've done a bit dodgy with Luke. It does fit into your hands thing though, because you did say obviously Star Wars is on the hand stuff is a good storytelling mechanism, and they cloned the whole new Luke from the hand in the Heir to the Empire trilogy.
Indeed, a hand that is in the Darth Vader comic on Exegol, is that right?
It is, yeah. It is.
There we go. Back to the Harbinger and back to the Bad Batch. I suppose we'll go to you, Kat. How do you feel about where this leaves the Bad Batch and Omega?
It's really interesting because Asajj lies to Omega. She says that Omega doesn't have a high M count, which we know categorically is a lie. She does have a high M count, which should technically make her open to the Force. Yet at no point in this episode does Omega show any capability of having the Force. And I feel very conflicted about it because I still feel that Sabine didn't need to be a Force user, and I also feel that Omega doesn't need to be a Force user. It seems that Star Wars is almost falling into a trap of, to be a strong female character in Star Wars, you have to be a Force user, which you don't. Fennec Shand proves it.
Definitely.
But at the same time, it could be that Omega has repressed her Force capabilities because of Nala Se trying to protect her, and that she's subconsciously fallen into some kind of routine to repress her Force connection. So I don't know. I'm very conflicted about whether or not I want Omega to try and learn the Force.
Part of me was expecting, we'll go to you, Ian, with this one, for the, I get you put her through like some Force tests. I was expecting more of like a blood test, like what Qui-Gon did to Anakin on Tatooine. Yeah,
I saw something that did line up quite well. It was very similar to how Luke tested Rey in The Last Jedi with the meditating and that type of stuff. Maybe she doesn't have that facility, obviously, to test blood and all that. Qui-Gon did have to send that to Obi-Wan to get it analysed. And plus, like I said, like it says at the end of the episode, I think she wasn't being totally honest with Omega. Obviously, Omega is Force sensitive. and she does have force potential. So yeah, I liked how they did. I do think, like you said though, the second task where she asked her to run to the top of the settlement was just to get her out of the way. I don't think that was actually a test. I think that was just so she could handle her business with the Bad Batch.
I agree, but I also think if it was a test, she definitely cheated because she used what's his face, Batcher.
Batcha.
Batcher obviously
Batcher.
did a lot of the work in that one. Go to you, Kat, with this one. So if Omega is strong with the Force, do we think that's like the Force found her, like how the Force usually finds people, or are we saying that the community ones bred her to be Force sensitive?
Very good question. Only Nala Se really knows the answer to that. But the way that she's constantly kept Omega by her side and continuously hidden Omega's blood count means that Nala Se has always known that Omega has a high M count. So it could be that she was genetically engineered by the Kaminoans to be Force sensitive, and Nala Se has covered that up. But yeah, I mean that would make a lot of sense, and it would tie in well with Project Necromancer and bringing Palpatine back, because it sort of proves that clones can be genetically modified to be Force sensitive.
And if Omega is that, then is there a chance for the rest of the alphabet, like a Beta or a Delta, or all the other ones, like, or is she the only one? Do we think?
I think she's the only one because of how difficult it is. We know just from the blood counts that they were looking at on Mount Countis that finding an M count is very difficult and reproducing an M count is very difficult. So it makes me think that Omega would have been the only one, in which case it could have been a fluke of the Force itself, that it wasn't something they genetically engineered, but the Force just choosing Omega.
Indeed. Ian, what were your sort of final thoughts on anything we haven't discussed about this episode?
No, just that it was absolutely stunning. The visuals. It's great to have Asajj back. I really do love that character since we first met her in the Clone Wars movie. And yeah, no, just a really good episode. And I'm intrigued to where the story is heading. Like I said, we're in the final few episodes now. It's been a really good series and that, and I will be sad when the Bad Batch ends, to be fair.
What did you think of Asajj's ship?
Really cool. For what? Yeah, we saw a bit of it. Yeah, it was really cool. It was kind of spooky how she came out of the darkness. That was kind of spooky. That scared me a bit. But yeah, no, her ship was cool. I don't know if that's a new ship, because I think they gave her ship in Rebels to Sabine Wren's bounty hunter friend, the Banshee. I don't know if it's a new ship that they've designed for this show, but yeah, no, really cool.
Kat, final thoughts on the episode and anything we haven't discussed yet?
Absolutely loved it. Seeing the return of Asajj Ventress, something I never thought would happen, but I'm so glad it has. The character development for her has been incredible. And yeah, I just want to see way more of Asajj Ventress.
Do you think we'll see any more of this season?
I don't think so, because I think that would take away from Omega and the Bad Batch's story. But it's definitely not the last we've seen of Ventress.
Indeed. Turning our attentions back to the Bad Batch, the next two episodes air on the same day, so April 3rd, 2024, we get a double episode. It is episode 10, Identity Crisis, and episode 11, Point of No Return. Quite ominous titles, I suppose. My thoughts are Identity Crisis is probably going to be a little bit of Omega dealing with the I'm different to my brothers now because of this M count thing, and also I imagine Crosshair dealing with who am I now. I don't know what your guys' thoughts and expectations are for the double episode that airs on April 3rd. We'll go to you first, Ian.
Identity Crisis. I think it could not potentially be Omega. It could be the new clone, the clone assassin maybe he's having an identity crisis, and then Point of No Return, like you said, is very ominous. Maybe they find Mount Tantis, maybe they find the locations of Mount Tantis, and they eventually go. Maybe that's the point of no return, because once they find out where it is, they are planning to attack the place.
And you, Kat?
I agree with Ian. I think identity crisis could be something to do with Clone X and who is really behind that mask, which could influence the Bad Batch's decisions and the point of no return.
I've just been thinking, what you were saying about sort of Asajj Ventress and the possibility that she's working with the Rebel Cell, which I've forgotten the name of right now. Is it the Path?
Yeah, the Hidden Path.
So the Hidden Path, yeah. So if she was to sort of go back to the Hidden Path and sort of say, "Oh, there's a Force-sensitive clone," this Hidden Path might then come for Omega to sort of put her in hiding. Do you think?
I'm not sure. I mean, we don't really know how the Hidden Path works, of whether a Force user has to find it or they come looking for Jedi on the run. But the way that Asajj was talking to the Bad Batch makes me think that she does trust Omega to their care.
Yes, I think you're right there. That brings an end to sort of wanting to talk about the Bad Batch. Ian, any last points for the Bad Batch?
Not really excited to see where the story goes. We're near the end now, so yeah, no, just hugely excited to see where this story goes. I'm super invested in these characters and what their fate may be.
Indeed. Kat, I've got something different to ask you about, because I don't think I've spoken to you about it yet. Obviously, while we're waiting for the Bad Batch, we've got 6 episodes left, obviously 2 air this Wednesday on the 3rd. But, come June, we get our next feast of Star Wars, which is live action, which is the High Republic era, which is Star Wars Acolyte. Obviously, we've had the posters, we've had the trailer, we've had the merch. What's your thoughts on the Acolyte, and how are you excited for it?
I am very excited for it. As you know, I absolutely love the High Republic era. I've read most of the books, most of the comics, and tried to keep up with all the stories surrounding the Nile, the Path of the Open Hand, and the Jedi during this time. The trailer did excite me, but I suppose because it's quite ambiguous and it is a timeline we don't know as much of, I was sort of watching it and not understanding it, which is a good thing. It kind of reminded me of like watching the trailer for The Force Awakens, because it's a totally new era of Star Wars to see on screen. And none of the stakes have been set. We don't know who the main players are. We don't know their motivations. We don't know who they are.
I do.
So I'm excited for it in the sense that it's going to be something completely new, and that by the time we do get the episodes, I will understand these new characters and see how they tie in to the wider High Republic literature.
Have you not heard who the villain is? It's a Jedi from the High Republic era who's turned to the dark side.
Oh my gosh! Right? Okay.
It's Nubs.
Oh,
I'm just joking.
that makes total sense.
I'm
Nubs.
winding you.
Nubs. No. April Fools.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Do you think we'll see Nubs in the Acolyte though? Because he's only young, so he might be.
He could be. I mean, we don't know how long his species lives.
Live action Nubs, you up for that?
Every day of the week.
Do you think? I suppose more seriously. Obviously, I think we're probably in the time I heading towards the sort of the, we're going to see some Siths doing some stuffs, and we see that red lightsaber. Do you think it belongs to a Sith Lord?
No, I don't think it necessarily belongs to the Sith. I think it just belongs to a dark side user. I mean, there is a difference. We've seen it with Asajj Ventress in the past. You can be a dark sider and have a red lightsaber. It just means you've bled the crystal. It doesn't necessarily mean you are a Sith. But at the same time, even if it was a Sith, we know that the Jedi High Council, particularly Yoda, looking at you, little green man, would be covering up the identity of any Sith.
It's very strange, isn't it? Very strange. And I suppose I'm a bit very behind in High Republic timeline, so I imagine by this point the Nile have sort of dealt with, and there's no Martian Row.
Yeah, so this is, I think it's set, what, 100 years before the Phantom Menace?
Around that time, yeah.
Yeah, so the Nile threat would have been eliminated at that point, but there's still going to be issues in the galaxy, and we're heading into that era. If you look at the robes they were wearing, we're heading sort of out of that golden era of the Republic and into more of the bureaucracy that you see then in the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, definitely. Any final thoughts on High Republic and the Acolyte, and we'll wrap things up?
Very much looking forward to seeing this new era of the galaxy, and just really interested in what the story is going to be about.
Let's talk about merchandise. Ian, have you been buying any? I know you've been pre-ordering some things, so talk us through what you've been buying and pre-ordering over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, currently my variant edition of the first Jango Fett comic, which is amazing, came the other day, which is really cool. I already had the digital version, but I thought the variant was really cool. Obviously, Living Force comes next week, which I'm really looking forward to. I've seen the reviews for that. That's hugely exciting. I've pre-ordered the Last Command Black Series figure, which comes the day after my birthday, so that'll be a nice little treat for me the day after my birthday. And that's it for now. That's what I've pre-ordered. I am coming up to Newcastle in a couple of weeks to stay over, and I will be making a trip to Forbidden Planet, and I do plan on picking up a few cool things there as well.
Always worth picking up a cool few things at Forbidden Planet. Kat, same to you. Obviously, I know you've got a Funko Pop maybe you want to talk about. Is there anything else you've been pre-ordering or receiving over the past few weeks?
Not as much as Ian, but yes, I do have the Ahsoka Funko Pop now that's based from the Ahsoka show. So she's got a hood, and that adds to my ever-growing Ahsoka collection. And then I have had this week the 2 variant comics. I've had the International Women's Month variants for Star Wars and for Jango Fett #1.
And how good is Jango Fett #1?
I really enjoyed it. I just bought it for the cover, which is an amazing piece of art of Rose Tito, but the story was so good.
It's this by Ethan Sachs, yeah?
It is, and Ethan knows how to write a bounty hunter.
Ian, are you loving it just as much as Kat is?
Yeah, it's a really cool story. I was quite surprised. Like Kat, I've always loved Jango Fett. I love the character, so I was always going to pick up the first one. But no, the story did have me invested. It's a cool little like mystery type story that we get to see Jango do cool stuff as well, which is always cool.
Yes, indeed. I love myself Bounty Hunter as Jango Fett. I've nearly rebought the Jango Fett action figure from Attack of the Clones, like the one I first got back in 2002. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I'm going to. It's quite cheap, to be fair. But I think I'm going to do that just because why not? Being an adult's all about rebuying the toys you had as a child. Although my wife does not agree. But there we go. Ian, to wrap things up, where can people find you on social media?
I'm on social media on X at Star Wars Ian.
And Kat, same question to you.
You can find me on Twitter at Kat Kylo, both with Ks, where I'm always happy to talk about anything Lego, Star Wars, or Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren, indeed. Ben Swallow, hey? We talked about that side of it? His big chest?
Basically, it's just me being a Reylo, and you will often see photos of my dog Kylo on there.
Oh, well, this is a very dog-friendly podcast, so that is very good. You can find myself on X. I always say Twitter. This is the first time I've said X. Blame you with that, Ian, or even thank you for getting it right. So yeah, you can find myself on X and Instagram at Jolly Jedi Pete. You can find the podcast on X at Boars Star. You can also find the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Star Wars Podcast. And we are collecting the brand new Star Wars trading card game from Fantasy Flight Games, Star Wars Unlimited. It is absolutely fantastic. And we are ripping packs, unveiling packs on TikTok, so check that out, definitely. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please just leave us a top review. Again, it makes us smile for a long time, only takes you a few moments, and it helps people find the show. And again, if you're listening on any of the other wonderful podcast applications and it lets you leave a review, just leave a top review. Again, makes us smile forever, only takes you a few moments, and it helps new people find the show. But thank you very much for listening. May the force be with you all. Let's hope the Bad Batch gets more deep, emotional, and tragic and awesome. And remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.
The Dorky Diva Show presents
Why is this seat so much more comfortable?
the long-awaited sequel to the adventures of the Zolan Dart audio drama.
Have you seen the captain's datapad?
Trying to work, Murph.
Piloting the Zolan Dart by himself,
You do understand the details of this particular job, correct?
I've been on plenty of jobs like this. With you!
Reldar Sias returns to a planet he thought he'd left behind for good.
Is there a reason you didn't mention I was tagging along?
Hopefully having you there will make others think twice about messing with me.
Making new friends
Oh, you must be the pilot of the Zolan Dart, yes?
I guess I am.
and reconnecting with old ones,
Reldar?
Vera?
What are you doing here?
until past grudges resurface.
I'd be minding my own business if I were you.
Well, if your business wasn't being handled right in front of my face, maybe I could mind my own business. We have to leave. Now.
Why the rush all of a sudden?
We're in trouble.
If it isn't little Reldar Sias.
Hey, Yorick. Long time no see.
Roz already knows you're here.
Oh.
Look who decided to come home.
Reldar must confront his origin,
I must admit, I never saw this as being a part of your past, Softshell.
or let it define his future.
I will get what is owed to me, no matter the cost.
Because what Roz is trying to do is wrong.
Says you. My blasters. We're going to need these. Take that, Sleemo.
Who do you think you are?
The Adventures of the Zolan Dart, Episode 2, coming soon.